Hey guys, it's Rush. Hope we're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. So a really good 6-button controller with a amazing D-pad was not on my bingo card this year, or at least this portion of the year. I purchased the PANGU controller, which I've done a review of. For information on that video, please see the link in the video description and in the pinned comment for that review. This video today, I'm going to talk about 2 modifications that I've made to this controller. There is the 6 buttons. You can see here, I've customized these 6 buttons. And also there is a different D-pad. So I'm going to talk you through both the process for both modifications, but also why this is so good. Starting with the buttons and the changes I've made here, these 2 separate modules, you can see are clearly not stock. This is what they look like stock. So I'm going to put the original buttons in. It's 2 separate sets of 4 buttons. So you've got 4 here, 4 here. So imagine like on a PlayStation controller, you've got a set of square, triangle, circle, X, and then a separate set of square, triangle, circle, X. It's 2 separate modules. It's not a one-piece 8-button module, and it's not 2 modules that make an 8-piece. And the reason I say that is because look at the alignment. These buttons sit in a row this way. They sit second row sit quite closely. Third row away across from that second row. There's a massive gap here. But from an ergonomic perspective, when you use this pad, your brain will feel that these are separate modules. It does not feel like one complete set of buttons across the 2 modules. And that is very confusing, for me at least anyway, with fighting games. I did slowly adjust to it. I don't say that you can't adjust to it, but in my opinion, it feels very awkward. So my thought process was, and I did have this idea before I even received this pad, that I would try creating what is essentially like a 6-button module, or at least having the 2 end buttons of the first module close to then the 2 buttons here on the second module. So it almost is like those 6 buttons sit close together. They're all separated equally, and that has been achieved with this design. So I move the controller to one side. If you look at the buttons, sort of where they would be together, if I were to position the 2 modules in the pad, it would look like this. Now, it wasn't intentional, but this is very similar to the VICTRIX Fightpad module. If you look at the size of the buttons, I think these are slightly bigger, shape of the buttons, and the alignment of the buttons, very similar. I'd say the main difference, if I put them closer together, is that I think this top row and bottom row, there's a smaller gap, whereas here it's ever so slightly larger. Now, the VICTRIX, being completely honest, with the VICTRIX, I modified that controller extensively and I got it into a place where it was pretty good. But the issue I had with the VICTRIX with all my mods, the PC version and the reloaded version with the buttons higher up, was that these buttons way too sensitive. Very, very sensitive. Even though I changed the springs in them, in my opinion, way too sensitive. And it was very easy to press the wrong button. I would often press the wrong button when using this module. I could easily press A when I want X, B when I want Y, when I wanted Y. Very frustrating, even after changing those springs. It got better with the stiffer springs, but still very frustrating. But I never really felt confident enough with this module. The other issue with the VICTRIX is the D-pad. So this has the stock membrane in there. It doesn't have the PCB with switches in. And the thing what I found with this D-pad, and this is a me issue, this is a gripe that I have personally with the controller, and that is that you have to really churn from the down to the left and the down to the right to register quarter circle motion inputs. In a game like Street Fighter 6, where you have to be able to input super very quickly on reaction to things, this was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And doing quick cancels into super as well, an absolute nightmare. You had to over-exaggerate the input to get those motions. So what I did, and you guys who follow the channel for a while may know this, should know this, that I changed the module, the actual PCB module, from the membrane PCB to a micro switches PCB. And that improved things. It made essentially the inputs quicker and it made them sharper. And it was a little more lenient. However, it was a faff. I had to keep taking it apart, cleaning elements inside to maintain that consistency. And if I'm honest, I was still missing inputs on the right-hand side. That was a big problem. So that's the two gripes I personally had with the VICTRIX. So coming back to the buttons, take the stock ones out. Still haven't got this down perfectly yet. You have to kind of pinch them still. Even though you pop them out, you have to pinch them. Put these in. So the buttons still sit at this almost 45-degree angle, which I don't think is, it's almost ergonomic. I feel like it should be a little more twisted upwards, so maybe like a 35-degree angle, but it's not a big issue. But thus far, with these buttons, what I've noticed is because the stock PANGU buttons are quite stiff, that means you're not getting misinputs. I'm not accidentally pressing buttons because they're so sensitive. That does not happen on this controller. And call it luck, I don't know, but the way I've aligned these buttons feels good. It feels like I'm not pressing the wrong buttons, which is, of course, that's amazing. The last thing you want in a fighting game is pressing the wrong buttons. Let's talk you through what I've done. I may have to adjust the camera zoom because I want to get this a bit closer. Sorry, I meant the focus, not the zoom. So what I've done is I've sanded down, imagine these two modules. I sanded down one at a time the tops of these modules. And the reason for that is, look at the buttons. They're a little rounded and not completely flat. And they have a very glossy finish. A glossy finish is not the best. So when you're gluing things, so I sanded them down. That's why these are a bit more matte looking. If you look at the two, these are more shiny. Those are quite matte. Probably better to compare with that because that's the same color. That's shiny, that's more matte. And also, it's hard to capture it on the camera, but they are more flat. And these buttons, they came from a faulty Octa Pro. So I had two Hori Octa Pros. This was like the prototype, the original one I had. And the issue with this is that I broke the, I can show you. Basically, the modules for the PCBs for the shoulder buttons, they snapped off. But yeah, I broke it and I didn't really bother to fix it, to weld it back up. So I've used this for like donor parts. And the buttons, these ones you see here, came from this controller. So I may have mentioned on Twitter that it came from the Hori Octa. It wasn't the Octa, it was the Octa Pro, because this control pad doesn't work. So that's where they come from. So I took these buttons out. So when you pull the buttons out of the Hori Octa Pro, they're not flat, as you see here. They look like this. So you have the top, which is what you see through the recess, the gap that pops out. That's what you press. Underneath, they generally look like this. They are a long body. What I had to do was to use wire cutters, like sharp end precision pliers, to cut out the excess plastic on the back. So all this excess I didn't need. I wanted to, obviously this is at an angle, so I'll just pretend it's flat rather than at an angle. I wanted to trim it down to about, say, like there with the pliers. When that was achieved, then what you do is you sand the back. So if that's all cut off, you just got the end of the button. You then want to sand the back of the plastic down so it's flat. And it's key to make the back of this button flat. Obviously, this needs to be flat as well. And that then creates that surface that you'll glue together. And the glue that I use, so I use Gorilla Glue, and it's a epoxy resin glue that I use. That was placed on the back of the black buttons, the Octa Pro buttons, and then literally just stick it on top. You know, obviously, once you've done the sanding, once you've cleaned all the dust off both the buttons you'll be using and the stock buttons, once you clean them up, they're dry. Put a bit of glue on top. Now, there are some issues or some struggles with this process. The first challenge was making these buttons align, because obviously, naturally, these buttons are further down, those ones are further up, there's a gap. So I had to make these two black buttons sit a little further to the right, these ones further to the left to bridge that gap. So these buttons don't actually sit center. As you can actually see it, look, if you look there, that stock button underneath poking out, that one's poking out a lot. That's poking out here. That one's poking out more above up here. And even these two I've offset as well to maintain that similar alignment. That one's off, the underneath bit is appearing there. You can see that button underneath appearing there. So it was very awkward to glue them and position them correctly. I remember I was sweating. I was just like panicking, thinking, oh man, I don't want the buttons to be the wrong way. I could see them sliding a little bit once they were dry. And I was like, no, go back in place. It was really annoying. The other issue with this process is that the amount of glue that I use. I was really worried the glue would drip down into the controller. That didn't happen, but what did happen is that the glue did drip down enough where when you press the button down, see how the black is almost touching the face of the controller. The glue in between the button, the black button, and the base of the pad was getting squished. So that meant I was pressing it. It wasn't even activating the button. And when that happened after it dried, I was like, I've screwed it up. I've completely ruined those modules now. But what I did do is I got a precision screwdriver. This was quite a tedious process. It was actually quite like therapeutic. I didn't mind doing it. So that one, for example, and I had to just scrape the excess off bit by bit. And a lot of excess glue came off. And there's some times where I was like pressing down the button quite hard and I was scraping really hard. And I thought, man, that button's going to fly off. But as you can see, no issues at all. That's how I did that. The other key thing I need to mention, you may be asking, what are these little black things underneath? So there's like a rubber there, there's a rubber there, one poking out there, there's one, you can just see that one. I've hid that one quite well. One there and another one there. So the idea there is because, maybe if I pop it off, it might be easier. Because the buttons are off center, like there you can see quite clearly that one, the stock button is there. Look how much that stretches over the black button. What I've done is, but the lighting's not the best to demonstrate this. Zoom in a bit more as well. Sorry, not zoom. I keep saying zoom. I mean focus. So what I've done is I've used the rubber grips, the grip tape on the VICTRIX. I used them. I overlapped different layers of the tape, the rubber tape, on top of each other to create a stack thick enough to slot underneath. And the idea there is that when you press the button down, if you look, if I press here, yes, there is a lot of tension on that right-hand side, but it's hitting its cushion. So that stops me like bottoming out this side and that really bending to the point where the black button, the octa button, will fly off. It has a cushion to lean on. So I still get the activation, but it's leaning on the rubber. So if I'm honest, it's ghetto, but it's pretty smart and it works. So if I press these buttons, so that one's the edge there, look at that. It presses, it's not bending, it's not flexing. It presses great. That one there, look at that. That one's probably got a bit more of a lean. That's way over, but activates without an issue. That one activates without an issue, not much of a bend at all. And the same for that one. It works really, really well. I'm super impressed with like the ideas that I've implemented and how well it's come out, the end product. I was convinced it wouldn't work, but as you can see, it's come out really good. I'm very, very happy. So the D-pad. Now the D-pad was never something that I considered. I had no plans to do a D-pad for this controller. So when I need a certain D-pad for a certain controller, I have to order the whole controller. So this was destined originally for the VICTRIX. And this D-pad comes from a Logitech F310 pad. The reason I selected this D-pad is because I think it looks like a Sega Saturn D-pad, but smaller. Here I've got the Logitech D-pad against a Saturn D-pad, and that's side by side. You can see that the Saturn D-pad, this one on the left, is, I'd say, significantly bigger. It's only marginally bigger, but it makes a big difference in terms of the shape and the size of the D-pad. Now, the issue with bigger D-pads is that your travel time of inputs, so if I put that pad down, if I'm doing quarter circle, I know it sounds crazy, but the travel time from down to left, down to right is increased ever so slightly. And that means that your execution can be cleaner because it's obviously harder to do like a wrong input. It's because there's so much space going from back and down to down. There's a bit more distance to travel to get that input, but it does mean that it's slower. This I found too big. So I was like, where can I find a Sega Saturn style D-pad that is smaller? And I searched for a long time. I was looking at loads of pads on Amazon to see what I could rip off. And I've even bought a few other D-pads, controllers for the D-pads to get what I felt like was a better D-pad, but none of them really gave me that Sega Saturn feel, but were the size I wanted. They're either like too big or too small. And this one, I thought, yeah, this one will work. My plan was to put it on the VICTRIX. Because this pad came, I thought, you know what? I've got a good feeling about this D-pad. Let me just stick it on the PANGU and see what happens. And I did just that. I pop it off to show you what I've done. This is a pretty straightforward mod. This is what I've done on all my controllers, the Octa Pro, the VICTRIX, and now the PANGU. Is I have taken, this can come off. I've not actually taken this off yet. So the D-pad face on this module comes off. They're interchangeable. Pop it off. You can see that's what it looks like. That's the module itself with no face. And then that is interchangeable face. So this is, see a bit of glue there, I've got to clean that up. That's what was one of the original faces, but I've sanded it down a lot. And I've sanded the edges down to make it smaller because the white space would have protruded underneath because the white PANGU D-pad face was bigger than the Logitech one. I've had to sand this down so it's flat, the white one, and then sand around the edges to make it smaller. And then essentially just glue the Logitech one on top. And obviously the Logitech one, once I popped that off the controller, I had to sand that down as well. Same sort of thing. You get the precision pliers, you cut the excess plastic off the back, the exact same process as the buttons. Once you got the excess plastic off, you sand down the D-pad until it's flat. The way I judge if it's flat is once I've sanded it down, I just stick it on the desk and I just roll it from like up, down, left, right. And if it's rolling a lot, then clearly it's not flat. Till it's flat, then you want to clean up the white one, clean up the Logitech one. And then the same process, you just glue it in place. It was a little tricky to get the alignment because this ridge here is the bottom left. So that has to be sat bottom left of the pad. And then I had to align this correctly once I had it set in the right direction. That was quite tricky because, I had nothing to really gauge it off. It was actually easier to attach it to the module and then judge it that way. Obviously then I've got the flat sides here and there to judge it. And I was literally sliding the surface of the face. I was sliding it up and down until it sat perfectly on, this is connected in. I got it sat perfectly in the middle of that module and I felt like the up, down, left, right was correctly seated. Again, scary because if it's a bit off, it's going to be annoying. Like if it was a bit off, I would have probably ripped it off and done it again. That's just the OCD in me, but it came out perfectly. I had it perfectly aligned, checked it next day and it looked great. Just to show you the difference. So that's another stock PANGU D-pad face. The size difference. You can see that there's a lot of sanding out to do on the other one that I used. I used the Xbox style D-pad. I was never going to use that one face. Sand it down significantly so it was flat. And then there was a lot of excess here. Compare the two again, if you look. The size difference. I took a lot off the rim, then ensure it sat neatly underneath. I didn't really want to see the white bits as well underneath to create that finish. And again, it's just one of those things. I've got a lot of experience doing this. This isn't really technical because essentially all I'm doing is sanding, cutting, and gluing. It's any genius can do that, but the amount of effort that's gone into it and the precision that's gone into it and the care and time that's gone into it is why it's come out so good. The other thing I want to mention is the reason why this D-pad is better than the Octas on the left here. The Octa and the VICTRIX is, and I mentioned this in that previous video, these controllers where their D-pad face is interchangeable, they're not secure. It can be very loose from the D-pad module. They have recesses that sit in each other. And when you're playing, this one's pretty good. But other modules, I think I've got the Saturn one. So yeah, it's either the Saturn one. I know it isn't stock, but there are D-pads that come with the VICTRIX that do this. That's actually a good one. That's actually seated quite flat. But I've got other ones where look at the amount of movement. There are times where this will pop out or feel very loose because, again, it's not secure. Because this clips in, that's actually clipped in to the module, you cannot release that. That is stuck. And look, the movement there that's the whole of that moving. the D-pad is not moving at all. If I put this back into the VICTRIX, yeah, that's actually not too bad, you know, that's pretty good. But there is a bit of flex there, a bit of movement, and that will increase over time. That's another reason why this D-pad configuration on this controller is so good. There we go, done it. I didn't expect to have a pad this good, but you know, with the 1000 hertz polling, with the configurables in the app, or everything's configurable. I've got on the back, I've got these big paddles that again are mappable. This pad's just so good. I'm really happy with it. And I didn't expect the pad in conjunction with my mods to be as good as it is. So now comes the testing. So there's times where I go into the lab and I do some combos and I sort of give you my opinions on how it feels. I'll tell you now, it feels great. Like inputs in Street Fighter 6 feel amazing. But rather than me just doing some combos in the lab, I'm going to show a session, my first session of using this pad in Street Fighter 6 ranked matches. And I'm going to give you my honest opinion on how these inputs feel in a pressured situation, you know, where points are on the line, where it matters to get your execution down. Let's get a real opinion on how this feels. Okay, so here are my option selects. The first one is, I haven't played very much. The second option select is, that's it's ranked Demon Hours. It is the evening on Tuesday. Third OS is, I don't know this character. I don't know this character. I don't know the matchup. It's going to be horrible. Oh yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, you are dead. Easy peasy. Interesting. Too late to DP there. Nice whiff one. Oh, just a bit too far. Oh my gosh. Oh, I thought he was going to do wake up super, so I delayed my throw. What the? DP anti-air, I'm telling you, on this pad is ridiculous. It just comes out so quick and the input is just, it feels so clean. Could have got a much bigger punish there. So I actually had a missed execution error there. I did try and get a quarter circle forward. Wasn't ready for the confirm. That was rather unfortunate. I think we've established buttons. I don't feel like the face buttons are ever going to be an issue. It's all about the D-pad. What is the D-pad saying? And a wonderful matchup to begin this process. Gigael. Really want to attack his drive bar, to be honest, but this guy is jumping. This guy is jumping. Okay, so that maybe I need to change that. That the right trigger is very stiff. Gosh, we're still jumping in the corner. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I should have done. I don't know why there's such a big gap. Makes no difference. The outcome there. So button's good. Anti-air DP is good. Match clearly wasn't good for the guard player. So yeah, about the pad. It's the accuracy. It's the accuracy. I mean, I said that about the stock pad as well, like the in-stock form. The accuracy is just on point. But now we have the added D-pad bonus, the accuracy. Going well there. I don't really know what this person's doing. I have no idea. It's mashing parry. After everything, it seems. Except for anti-air. No anti-air parry, that's odd.
Bet that hurt.
Look at these DBs! Oh my gosh. Somebody call an ambulance. What is going on? Is it me? Is the controller? I don't know. That was not the right combo, was it? Sorry to cut the clip short. I didn't want the video to go on longer than it needed to. So to summarize, the pad is amazing. It's really, really good. And that's because I have so much confidence in the buttons, the D-pad, the layout. That brings me on to the buttons. So the buttons themselves, they register inputs really, really well. They're very sensitive, but the stiffness ensures you don't get accidental presses. And where they sit is perfect. It's a slight change to the layout of the VICTRIX Fightpad module, but in my opinion, it makes a difference. One thing I will say is I think that the buttons are a little too stiff. It could be marginally more responsive. With the D-pad, to summarize how I feel about the D-pad, it is the perfect size. It's not too big. It's not too small. I finally found a D-pad that has the design on the face that I prefer, Saturn style. So you can feel the up, down, left, right. But the size of it is not too big. As mentioned, when it's big, you have to exaggerate your inputs more. When it's too small, you're going to have inaccurate inputs. Stock PANGU D-pads are good, but this is more in line with what I'm used to. I should also mention that the D-pad module is also using switches, so you have that quick response snappiness of the button press. But I find with this D-pad module and just the configuration itself, I don't have to exaggerate inputs. They come out very easily, which is good. Very good for accuracy. Overall, I'm really happy with the controller. The only downside, if I was to be really picky, would be that those face buttons are a bit stiff. But outside of that, everything's great. The right trigger, as I mentioned in the highlights, I've got to change the dead zone setting on that. So that's something I can do. Doesn't mean the trigger's bad. I've got to adjust the settings. The paddles on the rear, I do think they're not quite as responsive and sharp as the VICTRIX. That's one thing I didn't notice, but it's not a massive issue. They're perfectly fine. Much better than the Octopro. Let me know your thoughts, guys, on the modifications and the current state of the pad. Hope that gives more insight into what I've done. Thanks for watching. Catch you next one. Take care.